Welcome again. Now we will start with the seventh keynote entitled Rethink, Remap, and Remaster E-Learning Forever, presented by the keynote speaker and trainer, Mr. Warren Knight. Please welcome with me, Mr. Warren Knight. We are glad to see you here with us.
Thank you. I am human. And you are human. And you are human. And all of you online that we're live streaming at the moment at the other end of a computer screen, a tablet, a laptop, you are human. Over the next 20 minutes, I'd like to take you on a journey of understanding why being human is so important. And I'm going to share with you how we're going to fix this problem. This is my online learning equation. Just take a look at this for a moment and think about all of the core elements that I'm about to share with you, because this is broken and we need to fix it, which are some words that I've been hearing over the last 3 days. I'm going to ask you to take a look at the top. We're talking about relevancy. We're talking about the type of material that's created and the context at which it's received. We're looking at the participants of how they understand what it is that we're sharing with them across from screen to screen. Now, this is key to understanding how well the information's been received. But I also look at the trainer. What is the trainer doing today to be able to add value to that other human being that's looking at the computer screen? So, does the trainer bring passion? Does the trainer have knowledge? Does the trainer make you smile and make you laugh? Because if he does, we can multiply that by how he facilitates the outcome of how you learn. Now, this equation for me is broken. And as I mentioned, I'm going to talk to you today about how we're going to fix this. How can we fix this learning equation from a human being talking to another human being? So I think we should remap and rethink the way that we are currently doing things. We need to remap a process that enables us to achieve a different outcome. And we need to remaster the way that we teach, the way that a human being interacts with another human being. So I want to share with you this quote by Albert Einstein. And I think this underpins every single thing that we've been talking about over the last 3 days. Because where we were in the past, back in 2012, I built an e-learning platform and I sold that e-learning platform. I look back at it today and it gives shivers about the way that it was created and the way that it was engaging with other human beings. It was broken. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created it. My name's Warren Knight, and my role today is to really help you look at things in a slightly different way. I don't come from an academic background. I mentioned I've sold one business. I've built businesses. I've lost businesses. I've got investment into companies. I really like to understand not only how technology is an enabler, but more importantly, how humans engage with other humans. Now, to do this, I wrote a book all about Think Digital First. And I wrote this book back in 2014. And along that journey, I've won various different accolades that's enabled me to share my vision across the world. Very soon, I'll be releasing my next book, which is called Everyday Transformation, which is all about how the people connect the dots and create a process all the way through to the technology. But don't listen to me, listen to him. I have 3 things that I'd like to impart on you today. And it's part of who I am, it's part of my ethos, it's part of my DNA. When I talk to other humans, I want to give them the confidence of what they're hearing. I want them to be able to have the skills that are needed to apply in real life experiences and real life situations so that they can learn and grow. But I also want to give them the tools. Now, I'm going to be giving you a couple of tools today that you can use wherever you are, driving in the car, sitting at home, traveling on a plane. I want to give you some of those tools to be able to help you have that confidence with the skills and the tools. I've worked with some fantastic companies in the region. I worked with MISC. I've been up to NEOM. I worked with PwC Academy here. I've worked with Nesma. All of these brands, and some of them you might recognize. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with them. And I'm going to share with you the journey that I've taken, every single one of the individuals that I've worked with, the other human beings on a journey. And I want to share that journey with you today. I want you to just take a moment. I've got about 15 minutes with you to think about things from a different lens. I was listening to the previous panel talk about what we need to do from a government perspective. I was listening yesterday around how technology is going to be the enabler, how we can take that data and feed that data back to another human being. The word student was used, but to another human being, to be able to help them to achieve more, achieve faster, achieve quicker, whatever they want to do, to help them do that. And I do believe technology is here to stay, and it's advancing at a pace that we've never seen before. But I want you to think about it from a slightly different lens, just for the next 15 minutes. The first thing that we need to do is rethink. We need to rethink about how we're teaching other human beings. Words that were used in other panels and presentations, the current process is broken. We need to do that. We must do this. Well, I'm here today to share with you how we can do it. But I want to share it with you from the ground up. My experiences and the experiences of other people that I know and that I work with. This is my home studio. As a teacher talking to other human beings, I want to create an environment that allows me to give all the energy that I've got and the knowledge and experience to the other human beings down the lens of the internet so that they can feel and see that passion. I have a stand-up desk. I've got 4 different screens that I work on. I use a piece of technology called OBS, which is connected to a little panel called Stream Deck. In a split second, I can change from a PowerPoint presentation to be online, to engage using Kahoot. If I'm getting engagement from the other human beings at the other end of the line, and they've just come up with an incredible answer to a problem, I can push a little button, awesome, appears on the screen. For me, this is about taking them on a journey of how a teacher can give everything that they can give, and the other human beings can take that information in just as if I was in the room with them. One thing that came out of a panel question yesterday was, we need to upskill teachers. Well, I think this is a great way of doing it. Give them an environment that allows them the flexibility to do what they need to do in a split second. Just like the conversations you heard earlier about ChatGPT, the way that it can give you an answer to a question. I flew 2 days ago from Amsterdam, where I created 30% of my presentation using ChatGPT and Midjourney, the content and the visuals. I use that AI technology to create presentations. So we know it's there. We know it can achieve some outcomes. But it's the way that we present and the way, as a teacher, we can really impart that knowledge on those other human beings. Why are we teaching? Why do we want to change the things that are broken? To use words that people have been using today and yesterday and the day before. Now, I asked you to look at things from a slightly different lens. And what I mean by that is, what we teach today and how that other human being takes that information on board starts to craft a journey for that individual in regards to where they want to go and where they're going. It's our roles, it's our responsibility as teachers to be able to do that. So, why are we doing this? For me, I have a different why. And I would like to introduce to you these two beautiful girls. These are my daughters. You have Blossom. Thank you very much. You have Blossom here, who's on your left. She's 4 years old. And you have Dixie, which is on the right. She's 5 years old. Dixie is only here today because of artificial intelligence. That's why she's here. That's why I say, I believe in technology. We went through 3 rounds of fertility treatment and an 18-month journey of being educated to have Dixie. And in that moment, my wife and I became mum and dad. But Dixie had different ideas. Dixie wanted us to be a family. So completely naturally, Blossom came along. So the way that I look at this, it was buy one, get one free. Now, I got told 22 years ago, I'm going to be 53 this year, 22 years ago that I could never have children. A specialist told me that I'd never be able to have children. So you can imagine how I feel every single day about my children. Because they're right. Their jobs have not been written yet. And that's why my wife and I have taken the responsibility to home educate our children. Every single day for us as teachers and parents is about teaching our children what the future is going to look like. Not waiting till they go to school, not waiting till they go to university. Today, we've taken that responsibility to be able to do that. Because we don't know what job they're going to have by 2035 when Dixie's 18 years old. How do they learn? They learn by doing. Just out of curiosity, how many people here have children in the room? Okay, we've got quite a few people. A big hand going up in the air. I love that. You know how creative children are. You know how they learn by doing when they play and how they understand what it is that they need to be doing. And they take that and then 2 days later, they surprise you in understanding what they learned 2 days ago and they apply it over and over and over again in real life circumstances. So this is the why. I think if we don't fix things now, by the way that we're educating other human beings online, they're going to take this broken environment, to use words, and then they're going to apply that to their children and so on and so forth, which is the reason why we took the responsibility to home educate our children. For those of you that put your hand in the air, you'll understand this word. Children are creative. They continuously have these environments that allow them to have creativity. And so through this lens, I want you to think about it from a teacher's perspective. If a teacher can't impart that knowledge to another human being, for them to be able to apply it in the way that they like to do it, once again, we have a disconnection. So just to put some context around this for you. Divergent thinking. Well, prefrontal cortex, we have 3 different networks that enable us to be able to think creatively. Divergent thinking, creative thinking is what students should be doing and human beings should be doing over and over and over again. So I'm going to give you a very quick tool. And if you're up for doing something a little bit different, please walk along this journey with me. I'm going to put you in a creative state by doing something that's called open networking thinking. Just for 60 seconds, just for 1 minute, close your eyes. Close your eyes. I want your memory to start getting excited about, what are you doing this evening? That phone call that you had earlier today. Let your mind be free. Let it think about all these different ideas. What's your journey home going to be? What music are you going to listen to? Who are you going to call on the way home and tell about the event that you've been to? 60 seconds of allowing your brain to quieten down and just be creative. Imagine if we as teachers were able to share that knowledge with other human beings during that journey. So that's all about creativity. This is divergent thinking. Then we come to critical thinking, convergent thinking. This is where we are trying to solve a problem with one answer. We have a lot of academia in the room. We have scientists in the room. This is a great example of critical thinking. So I'm going to give you another quick tool to be able to help you get focused and solve one thing. I would like you, please, to, let's have a look around the room. See that chandelier there? Stare at that chandelier for 1 minute. Just look at that chandelier for 1 minute and don't think about or do anything else but look at that chandelier. You create an environment where you focus on one thing. I'm looking at the camera right now. I'm going to wave to the audience that are online, but I'm staring right at that dot. My brain will not allow me to think about anything else in a creative space, an environment that's full of memories. All I'm doing at this point is looking at one environment, allowing me to think about how I'm going to solve a problem. Critical thinking, convergent thinking. I think teachers need to understand this just that little bit more to help get better engagement with the other human beings at the end of the World Wide Web. And my final part of how we're going to rethink, remap, and now we're going to look at remastering. I think we need to look at how humans learn. We as individuals. I learn by online training programs. I learn by being in the room with people. I have various different certifications that I've accrued over the years. So I learn in very many different ways. But I think there's something that's been missing. And fortunate enough for me, this region has enabled me to apply this. And it's that critical element that's been missing. And that is the applied learning strategy. It's not about how we teach another human being and how that other human being says, thank you very much. They turn the computer off and they walk away. That for me is not how I teach my children. They learn by doing. And by creating an environment that allows the other human beings to come together creatively, collaboratively, with a focus of solving a problem based on the information that they've now taken. This, for me, is the answer to that question. Creating capstone projects for companies has made the difference. Enabling people to be able to take that information in and apply it in real-world circumstances. Now, you'll notice along this journey, there is always the feedback loop. We as trainers need to be better facilitators. We need to understand the concept of mentoring people. How can we coach them through that journey in regards to what it is that we want to achieve? And this applied learning strategy is something that we do after we've shared and imparted that knowledge onto another human being, creating that environment where people can collaborate, where they can be creative in those environments and think critically to be able to help solve problems. So this, for me, the applied learning strategy is how we as teachers can make a difference today. I've done it for various different organizations. You'll notice me at the back there. I'm online. My business partner, whose also name is Warren, he's the one sitting there with a big smile on his face in the room. And every single organization, the ones that I shared with you earlier today, have all been on this journey of imparting knowledge to other human beings online, sometimes blended learning, but other times 100% online. And then at that point of when we've finished imparting that knowledge, allowing them to go off in real world circumstances and apply that information. Here's another one. You might recognize some of the brands, some of the images that have been shared. And it's been an incredible experience for me to be able to apply this applied learning strategy to other human beings. So as I said, this is broken. The way that other human beings that are taking that information in to be able to make sure that it's relevant, there's context, and we're multiplying that by how the engagement is. And then how the teacher is making the audience smile. How the teacher is knowledgeable, comes from a place of passion. This, for me, is what's broken. And the applied learning strategy is how we can fix it. And we can fix that today, not tomorrow, not next year, not next month. And we don't need technology, as in ChatGPT or AI, to do it. So I think let's create an environment that allows us to apply what we've learned and upskill teachers to be able to start adding value after the point they've finished imparting their knowledge on them. So my name's Warren Knight. I am human, and so are you, and you, and you, and you, and everybody online. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knight. Now we would like to present you with a keynote of our appreciation presented by Dr. سلطان الحسين, عميد عمادة تقنية المعلومات. Thank you. Now we will be, thank you so much. Now we will be presenting the 7th panel, which is discussing the topic of development of 21st century skills through e-learning system. I would like to welcome the chair of the panel, Dr. Christina De Voorde, and she is a senior manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers Innovation Research Center. Also, please welcome our panelists, Ms. Amy Hollier, the Director of Blended and Online Learning, Dr. Tanya Scott, Assistant Vice Provost for Distance Education and Extended at North Carolina A&T State University. Also, I would like to welcome Mr. Somarai Gabita, General Manager at Human Logic Software, and Mr. Matthew Valoneri, CEO at 5th Ingenium. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Introduction, and I hope I can be heard. Welcome everybody to the panel, and warm greetings to all of you from the Netherlands, from my side. I have an honor of being the chairperson for this panel on development of the 21st century skills through e-learning systems. And let me just very briefly guide you through the context of the panel and how we propose to organize it. So we would like to start with a brief introduction of the topic, and then we have many distinguished speakers, panelists present on the panel who will be given an opportunity to share their experiences, and then we will be exchanging between ourselves, and hopefully there will be an opportunity also to engage you in the conversation, because it's all about interacting with each other and building on the knowledge that we all have and exchanging. So let me start by saying that e-learning systems represent a tool with immense potential for education. And we can see multiple applications of e-learning systems in different areas of education, and great examples of where it leads to successes, best practices that can be shared worldwide with each other. And that will be the main purpose of the first part of this panel. And our distinguished panelists will present experiences from their side. They will illustrate how exactly specific e-learning systems can be applied, are already applied, and what lessons can we learn from that in order to develop the 21st century skills. And then from my perspective, I will address this topic from a responsible digital transformation, trying to bring in also a balanced perspective and talk also about potential risks, challenges associated with technology use, to emphasize that if we want to get the maximum out of it, it's important to acknowledge also the other side of technology, understand what it can and what it cannot do, and then we can get the best out of it together. So let me start the panel, and I would like to first invite Ms. Amy Hollier to present her best practice example of e-learning systems for the 21st century skills.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christina, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this wonderful panel today. So I'm joining you from the UK, and I am the Director of Blended and Online Learning at Heart of Worcestershire College, which is based right in the centre of England. I also lead the UK's National Blended Learning Consortium. So I work predominantly with online systems and e-learning systems, and I'm going to share with you today a bit about what we do to develop 21st century skills through e-learning systems. So if we could go on to the next slide, please. So just to talk a little bit about our approach, we recognise that our students need to be developed as a whole person rather than just focusing on technical skills, as we all know now, and as Warren, the previous speaker, discussed earlier. Our students are moving into jobs that they don't even know exist yet. So how can we best prepare students for those roles? Well, we need to prepare them, as we say, through the development of 21st century skills. And we thought that using technology as an enabler was the perfect solution to that. So we've developed a blended learning program, and it's entitled Elements. I think we'll get to the slide eventually. And Elements is designed to be an independent online program. So the students do 2 hours per week independent learning online, and they have weekly activities that are designed to draw out those skills. So for example, we work on creativity skills. So students that are going to start at their own businesses, we develop their graphic design capabilities online. We build up their communication skills online, because obviously we're having to do so much communication online now. It's a real skill to develop with them. We did Thank you. I think the slides are coming through now. So if we could just not go through to the next slide, please. That's perfect. So this is an overview of elements that hopefully you can see. We also develop them through a number of project-based learning tasks. So they have to do 6 weeks of a project, and that's all online using technology, using a range of digital skills to really bring their subject area to life. We've set them real life scenarios that they'll have to work through as a group or independently, and that will be contextualized depending on their subject of study. So, for example, our engineering students will have to do a 6-week project using CAD software and other digital software relevant to their mode of study. And at the end of all of this, they get digital badges. So they leave with a digital backpack so that they can go into industry and they can talk about the other skills that they've developed. If we could go on to the next slide, I'll talk through some of those skills now. So as I touched on before, things like creativity, communication, collaboration is really, really crucial now, because we've been in the middle of a pandemic for 2 years, and lots of our students have lost the ability to collaborate and work together as a team. So we're drawing that out through the use of e-learning. We use a lot of Microsoft Teams, for example. Students have to do video conferencing to get them used to online etiquette. And it also breaks down geographical barriers as well. So our students are working across campuses. We invite guest speakers in, and they can not just be from the local region, but they can be international speakers as well. So it's breaking down those geographical barriers and really showing students an international aspect. Warren, again, in the previous keynote, which was really interesting, spoke about the need to develop critical thinking skills. So as we know, you can go online now and there can be so much fake news. It's hard to work your way through the plethora of information that comes out online as to what's real and what's fake. So we teach students these critical thinking skills, and we encourage them to develop a diversity of opinion. This is all online, and we show them examples of news outlets that are maybe generating different opinions to others, or fake news, etc. And we ask them to scrutinize and analyze that in great depth. So if we could go on to the next slide, we try to bring in all of this digital development so that it's all relevant to what they're studying. Lots of our students will go out into industry and they won't be adequately prepared with the digital skills that they need. So that's why we bring in, as I said, with engineering students, we use AutoCAD software. With our computing and IT students, we get them to use Cisco software. With our creative arts students, we get them using things like Adobe Creative Cloud, Photoshop, all of these different things that they are going to be using every single day of their working life. I won't go through all of them, but you get the general idea that it's all embedded and threaded through their programs. So we created the program with learners in industry to really understand what skills it was that industry wanted. And we wanted to understand more about what learners wanted from a blended learning program. Lots of them said to us that they didn't want to work, without guidance, or they didn't want to work through projects that they didn't think were relevant. So we introduced the real life scenarios. And lots of them said that they wanted to do project-based learning so that they have time to really get engaged with the project over a period of weeks. And as I said, they've got the digital backpack to add more value to their course when they go out into industry. So we use predominantly a virtual learning environment called Moodle. We use Microsoft Teams, And then we bring in other digital tools, things like Padlet, Kahoot, and the other relevant industry technologies as well, to really give them a depth of understanding about digital skill development and the development of these crucial 21st century skills. So that's an overview of our programme. I'm going to hand back to the chair now.
Thank you so much, Amy, for this fruitful example. And it was very interesting and to me satisfying to hear all those references to the 21st century skills, like you mentioned, critical thinking and all other crucial skills that are certainly among the ones that must be present in the skill set nowadays. And what also immediately let me think about issues that I will be highlighting. You mentioned that this particular tool was developed in close cooperation with learners and with industry. So it's essentially demand-driven. It's based on the actual needs of what needs to be present in terms of skills, and it involves learners. It puts them in the center. So this is at the core also of the vision of education that I will be addressing. So that was very welcoming from my side as well. So thank you so much for highlighting this. And I would like to invite our next speaker, and after all the speakers or our panelists will have a chance to present, we will have, so as I mentioned, an opportunity to ask each other questions and also to engage the audience. So if you have specific questions, please remember them, and we will certainly have an opportunity to ask them. All right, so please let me invite Tonya to present her fruitful best practice.
Thank you and good evening. I am Tanya Amankwatia, and it is my pleasure to share some essentials to supporting faculty efforts to adopt e-learning systems in the development of our learners' 21st century skills here at North Carolina A&T State University. North Carolina A&T State University is the largest public, historically Black university, and we also have that designation here in the States as an HBCU. So one thing that is essential is shared meanings. So in this presentation, I will talk about systems as a part of interactions among parts in our system of institutions and the technological systems. And we're going to talk about how that network supports our faculty efforts to embed career competencies and certifications into the curriculum. Next slide. So a little bit more about the institutional parts of this system and this particular example. I lead what is called the Extended Campus, and it is the administrative unit for A&T Online, our continuing and professional education, and our summer sessions. And we serve traditional and post-traditional learners of all ages. So lifelong learning is a part of our DNA, and on the screen you see some of those various designations. Tonight, I am going to talk about our example with our Steps for Growth partnership, and that stands for the successful training and effective partnerships for growing regional opportunities in the workforce to harness the North Carolina Clean Energy Alliance. So our unit, the Extended Campus, is working with our university researchers in the engineering program, or in the engineering college, and some of their other colleagues, to build the online infrastructure for stackable credentials. And we are going to be using a middleware blockchain technology for empowering learners with their own records, for the training, and the courses, credential verification, and employer access. So a little bit more about Steps for Growth. It is a grant that we got from the federal government to help solve some of the training and workforce development needs in North Carolina. However, we are building a national model because we are working with institutions in our University of North Carolina system, including universities and also community colleges. We are working with our state government, in particular the governor's office, and we are also working with employers to provide pathways from high school through the university to clean energy jobs. So there are different energy sectors, and we have a path that gives stackable credentials, certifications, groups of courses, and eventually that stack to different engineering degrees. But along the way, there's a pathway based on 21st century skills and certifiable competencies to jobs at any point. So that's what this is about. So let me tell you on the next slide a little bit more about the technology that is going to fuel and assist our faculty partners from different institutions and our employers in equipping students with 21st century skills. So one of the first things that our unit acquired on behalf of the university is now the LightsCast dashboard. Some of you might remember it being called MZ, and then they partnered with Burning Glass. But LightCast is excellent for us with helping faculty with curricular redesigns and embedding career competencies into the curriculum, because what it does for us is that it aligns human skills, hard skills, and actual certifications with the degree programs and certificates. And so we seed a lot of those conversations with that. And that information is coming from a lot of employment databases. So we're able to give regional and industry data up to date to our faculty. And it's amazing what faculty can do when they have data that is up to date and helpful. And we're also a member of our U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation's T3 Innovation Network. And if you are familiar with that, you'll know that there is an effort to have an open competency network specifically so that we in higher ed and those in industry and then those in the software development industry can speak the same language when we are talking about articulating our curriculum to in-demand skills and jobs. So there is a competency framework and there are tools that are available to us for making sure that there is alignment. And then for this particular grant, under the next column, I gave an allusion earlier to our government partner in the governor's office. We have been working with their efforts for workforce training, and they've done a great job getting various employers to embed themselves in a variety of ways at this point, you know, at the high school level, and we're spreading that through this grant in our community colleges and our university classes. And at the university, we already have partnerships with different industries, and I've put IBM up as an example, and some of you might already be a part of their academic initiative. But through that, we're able to embed micro-credentials into the curriculum, and that's what we've been doing. And then on the right, it just simply shows you the technology that we are using for this collaboration that I talked about. We're using a middleware, which is very important with partnership. And we can we'll talk about that later. That helps to bring learner and the faculty, and so are the credentials. So we are in the process right now of onboarding that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for your fruitful presentation, for highlighting this example of best practice. I would like just to mention one aspect that you mentioned, and I think needs to be emphasized here, and that's lifelong learning. Thank you so much for pointing that out. This is, of course, essential and should be also put amongst the 21st century skills. It's the ability to learn itself and the need to prepare all the learners to be able to advance their skills from the very beginning throughout the whole career, and maybe even beyond their career, actually for the whole period of their life. So we need to keep this in mind when talking about the 21st century skills. We will come back to what you mentioned, Tonya, so please let me just keep these questions for later. Thank you very much again. Let's move on to the next panelist, and I would like to introduce Mr. Matteo Valeriani and let him present the best practice example.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me in this panel. And I start to join saying that I'm a human too, but also an engineer. So that could be a problem sometimes. And in the last 12 years, I work with some of the most amazing companies in the world. I'm a technology lover, and I like to start to say that technology is useless when it's without a goals. My job a lot of times is find a knowledge the technology and find the goals to make this technology useless to improve the skills or to apply in other sectors. Well, one of the things that we are looking in the last few years, that the physical world and the digital world are going to blend each other. So next click, perfect. So we call this mixed reality, where we have physical and digital world blended together, and this open a lot of new opportunities. In particular, when we talk about learning, next slide please, we can apply this new approach, this mix of the world in the education with the concept of augmented classroom. So an hybrid space where people can be online, in presence, and share this unique classroom. So just to be more clear, I bring a couple of videos. You can click. This is an example of use augmented reality, mixed reality in architecture. So it's a lecture where a professor can share with the students in person, in the same room or remotely, the master plan of a new area of the city, discuss about the shapes, the new buildings, and going deeply until the single build or go inside the new building and showcase all the process of the build, of the construction and the design phase. And of course, this could be one of the most easy way to think to use augmented reality, virtual reality for teaching, because however, 3D is the core of the lecture. But we try to think something different. Next slide, please. We try to combine this technology also to apply and try to improve the soft skills in companies and also in schools and universities. So we try to create an experience where students can collaborate each other and at the same time develop the critical thinking. Next slide, please. Again, click. So this is an example where mixed reality is used to create an experience where students have to choose between multiple items with the idea to of living for a desert island. So it's a typical activity done in a lot of HR course or similar, but we bring in mixed reality to give more immersive experience in this way. So in this way, they start selecting the box, then need to select the single item inside, and they discuss. One of the critical points is favorite the collaboration, stimulate the discussion between students, and so on. So this is a way to, how we start to use mixed reality also for to develop 21st century skills. Next slide, please. Okay, but one of the big problems in this approach is, of course, the needs of 3D elements. It's very effective. It's very effective for technical skills. It's very effective for soft skills. But for instance, how we can teach history or philosophy or, again, art with this kind of technology? Well, next slide, please. We try to propose a new approach where we can represent also concept. The concept can be represented with the simple shapes, 3D shapes, can be cubes, cards, easily adapted by teacher or professor. Next slide, please. So this is another example in high school where we start from the traditional learning, where we have a science, chemistry lecture, and then we show another kind of use of mixed reality with the concept of represent concept itself. So here are some examples. Students can create mind map where they collaborate each other and also with other students from other schools. We have interactive polo based on physical element. They can exchange the ideas, they vote this idea, or this is an example of history where they use this cube that represents historical events to match with the relative date. And then again, an example in history, the traditional memory is bringing in technology, and in this case they need to match the artist with the paint, and many other examples. In this way, the technology and 3D is not the focus of the lecture, but they become the medium, the essential part to create engagement with the students and also to develop new skills and new capabilities. We tested this approach for a bit times. I don't want to tire with all the data, but just to say that this approach is very effective and very appreciated by the students and by professors at the same times. And just to closing, next slide, please. We can have several applications of XR technology, extended reality technology, to improve the training in technical discipline. I think there is we don't yet totally explore all the potential, and we can start to think technology like a medium, also this advanced technology like a medium to create more engaging activity and try to keep the attention of the students. At the same time, we can combine all the potential and the benefit of e-learning with the typical lecture in presence. And so this is the experience, and also, and finally, the experience we have in schools and university. With this experience, I can say that this approach can really have a big impact on the process and the Century One skills development. So thank you for your attention, and I leave like a last slide, one of the papers we already published with more details about this approach, and then you can find online all this information. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Matteo, for this fruitful demonstration of what technology can do in the classroom. And when I see these examples, it always makes me think the opportunities that technology can offer, they are literally endless. You know, it's like just limitless. You just have to think what you want and you have to come up with it. But in terms of realization, so much is possible. So the potential is immense, as I said in the beginning. So I would like to thank all the panelists that have presented their best practices so far, highly inspiring. And I think that's a very good illustration of what technology can do. And now let me take over from my side. As I promised in the beginning, I would like to bring in a balanced perspective in a sense of so far we were looking at the strength, at the power of technology, and there are absolutely no doubts that the power is great. It's just there, and as Warren mentioned, technology is here to stay. So we need to figure out how to use this power, because as we can understand, power is something that if you use it in the wrong way, it can also create not really the desired effects. So that's what I would like to talk about in my presentation today. And for that, we use the term Education 5.0. Maybe some of you are already familiar with that, but let me please just clarify what these numbers actually mean. And for that, let's start with Education 4.0. And that stems from the term Industrial Revolution, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or Industry 4.0. And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the term. It's a very popular term nowadays when we talk about a focus on achieving efficiencies using technology, putting technology in the center, and specifically digital technology, and integrating physical and cyber worlds, and making sure that digital becomes a very prominent part of our lives. So this is essentially what Industry 4.0 does for industry, but then it stems or goes into all the spheres of life, including education as well. So that's why it's called Education 4.0. So when we talk about massive digitalization, introducing of digital tools and solutions in every area of educational processes, that's all Education 4.0. And then what we see from my perspective also as a firm, we do a lot of analysis, policy studies at PwC worldwide. What we currently see happening in different countries of the world, there is gradually a shift from thinking about having technology in the center, because we are so passionate about it, it's so exciting, offers so many opportunities, to thinking, wait a minute, yeah, it is quite powerful, but are we applying it in the right way? And of course, we've seen it already after a massive application of digital technology in the last couple of years. We've seen that sometimes it doesn't really work out the way we wanted. There are sometimes also undesired effects. It has also negative impacts. So we need to learn how to work with it. And maybe technology should not be put in the center, because essentially we are doing it for humans. And it was so heartwarming hearing this reference to I'm human and everybody is a human here, because that's exactly what this is about. That we need to put human back in the center, and we need to start thinking from the perspective of what is it that we want to achieve, what are our human related goals here, and only then try to think about specific solutions that may in many cases be technology, but it does not always have to be technology related solution. So Education 5.0 is about putting humans back to the center and paying special attention to well-being, to achieve harmony between human and technology. And if we could please go to the next slide. These are the main components of Education 5.0 in a little bit more detail. Please do not try to read it. I will try to guide you through it very briefly. So essentially, it's three components. It's about making digital education, first of all, safe, second, relevant, and third, effective. So let's start with safe. Many people are surprised when they hear safe because, you know, what's wrong with that? It's perfectly safe, so why should we even talk about it? But in many countries, again, we see a very big movement where there awakes or raises a kind of consciousness regarding also the potentially negative effects of technology on health, on physical health, on mental health of learners, on motivation to learn, learning performance. So we're talking about, for example, electromagnetic fields related radiation from wireless devices, and in many countries it is already officially admitted that it exists and it is harmful for human health. In some countries they even have specific legal requirements when you are not even allowed to put these devices anywhere close to your to children at school, for example, or where very small children spend a lot of their time. So these are aspects that, for example, just to mention very practically, it's the case in France, it's the case in Cyprus. Cyprus is an example where a massive public awareness raising campaign took place to inform parents and kids, even putting posters on buses, just on the streets, to inform that wireless devices are harmful and they should preferably be avoided when small kids are around. So obviously we need to look closer to these things and we should not ignore them. But it's more than that. It's also ergonomics, especially for kids at school. So how do they sit? How much time should they spend with these devices? And also impact on their eyes and what kind of breaks they need to have, what kind of exercises are needed, and so on. It's also questions related to technology addiction, social isolation, depression, disrupted sleep, poor motivation to learn, and so on, because research and a growing research base is actually showing us that there is a strong evidence to conclude that technology can also have a highly negative impact on these aspects. But it's also related to aspects of privacy, ethics, and cybersecurity. These are just very brief highlights of special points that need to be addressed if we want to be in control of what technology is doing to us. And this is particularly important to the very small ones, to children, because those are the most vulnerable learners, obviously. So this is the safe part, and Education 5.0 looks at that first. Then the second point is relevant. And relevant is about how can we make sure that we actually develop the right skills. Because we can have brilliant technological solutions and they can be very fancy and entertaining, but are they actually leading us to the desired results? Are they, for example, really improving the learning performance, or are they just entertaining, maybe just distracting from something, or something else, but nothing related to what we actually want to have? And this is another interesting area of research that is currently being explored worldwide, where researchers very often conclude that virtual solutions or digital solutions unfortunately often do not lead to the desired learning outcomes. And that does not mean that digital solutions are bad or should be abandoned or whatsoever. It just means we need to learn how to deal with them. We need to make sure that we approach them in the right way and that we start with the skills that we want to train, and only then we go to the solutions that we need to use to train those skills. And finally, effective. That means that we need to make sure that we are developing the skills in the right way. And by that, I mean, again, we start with understanding which skills we need, and then we need to assess which solutions are the best for training those particular skills. And technology, in many cases, can be a wonderful solution for training these particular skills that we need, but it does not always have to be the best solution, and probably is not always indeed the best. So there are also alternative ways to do it. There are still traditional ways that are also very often highly effective, and we should not abandon them completely. And Education version 5.0 seeks a balance, a healthy balance between what existed already before digital and what is now possible with digital technology, so that there's again a harmony between both worlds and taking the best from both physical and digital solutions. All right, so please let's move on to the next slide. I just wrap up very quickly with specific key messages here. I think I mentioned all of them already, just wanted to highlight again that we need to focus on human. We need to acknowledge risks, approach it systemically, understand that it's not about changing just tiny bits and pieces, but that's the whole bigger picture that we need to understand when doing any kind of educational transformations. We always need to remember that there are alternatives. And of course, we need to be open-minded. I personally am absolutely convinced that technology can mean a lot for education, but we still need to be careful. So that's my key message for now. Thank you all very much for this. And I think we can now move on already to having a panel discussion, right? All right, so first of all, again, thank you all very much to all the panelists for presenting your best practice examples and for illustrating how the development of 21st century skills can be supported through e-learning systems. And first of all, let's discuss among ourselves how we see this happening in practice, and maybe exchange some lessons learned, some good practice examples again, and then let's open it up for the audience. I hope it will be possible also to take some questions from the audience. All right, so let me open it up by throwing in a general question, and I'm sure that many panelists will have their ideas on that. I remember that it was already briefly mentioned by Warren before, but I think that we could also follow up on that question, and that would be what can be done to support teachers, lecturers, with more effective use of e-learning systems in the classroom. And maybe Amy, you would like to take this on?
Yes, sure. I think that as we've spoken quite a lot already about the human aspect of this is the most important thing. And in order to get e-learning and technology being used in the most effective way, we need to first give the confidence to the staff, and I think the only way you can do that is by supporting them through really detailed training, and not just training at one level. Training needs to be differentiated so that you can have a basic level of training, or you can go through with those members of staff that maybe have more kind of knowledge about digital systems. You can give them more intermediate or advanced training support. So differentiated training for staff is really crucial. And I think also investing in the time for them to practice using systems and feeling confident with those systems to, you know, sometimes we do kind of use something and it goes wrong or it doesn't work as you'd expect it to. We have to give staff the time and the space to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, and then develop their own professional practice using digital tools in a more confident way. So I think staff training is the key to getting the most effective use of technology embedded across an institution.
Thank you so much, Amy. Maybe to follow up on that, what guidance could we provide for securing buy-in for e-learning system adoption? Maybe, Tonya, you could address this question?
Certainly, that was a big part of our initiative. So change management is really what we're talking about. So in order for something to change, someone has to change. And so some of the lessons learned is really leaning in and understanding what the goal and objectives are, of course, of the partners in the system, so that you can align the solutions for them to consider to their missions, to their goals and their priorities. Lowering the complexity of the adoption and making sure that message comes across in some of the supportive ways that we just heard from Amy. And we have to be really clear about the value proposition of the partners and the technology. In this case, we used middleware that was key, because the various institutional partners had different LMSs. The businesses had different content. The government had its own system. So the Odom.io middleware platform ended up being something that was very helpful, because it's important for the partners to see their goals going forward. And of course, like I said, lower complexity of adoption when you're building a statewide model that is to be a national model. And then open conversations. We can't be naive about people with fears, concerns, and the politics. Learning is personal, and we have to be very wise about the people that we're working with, and that we can adopt efficient systems. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for explaining that. And I think that also brings us immediately to a very practical, indeed, application of maybe that would be something for you, Matteo. How can we apply mixed reality, in your case, in practice? How can we assist teachers with doing so in their classroom? Maybe you have some guidance for us on that.
Well, mixed reality, like every other technology, have to be tools in the hands of teachers. They cannot replace the professor and the teacher in the learning activity. We need to support, however, the professor to understand the technology from one side, and the other side try to adopt a new learning approach that involves technology like a medium or in this process of a new education. I don't believe that we're going to replace in total the traditional learning approach, but we need to integrate. And this is the way we are trying to do. One of the key elements for us is every technology you decide to adopt, that technology give you the capability to create your own contents. The structure, a lecture based on your track. So you don't need to change your content in order to adapt a technology. It's the technology have to adapt to you. This is one key point. So we don't, the technology have to be open as soon as possible and give the capability to the professor, to the teacher, to bring their experience. So this is one key point.
Thank you very much, Matteo. I was wondering if there is any opportunity for us to take questions from the audience.
Do we have any questions from the audience or guests? Okay, no questions. So
all right, maybe we can... Oh, sorry for that. I just wanted to say maybe we can have a couple of minutes to wrap up then, if that's all right.
Okay, take your time.
All right, so thank you so much. Just wanted to close also with the aspect that I was highlighting in my own presentation, just to follow up on what the other panelists were mentioning, since we were talking how to apply these e-learning systems in practice. So maybe some of you were wondering also how to apply this concept of education 5.0 in practice. I just wanted to highlight again that it would be highly important to always start with the end result in mind, desired skills, for example, specific learning outcomes in mind, and only then to start designing the system, to start working out the solution and consider different alternatives, but also acknowledge risks and challenges that are associated with that. So it would not be technology as a starting point, but the specific goal that we have in mind. So I hope that that helps. And with this, I would like to thank again all the panelists for your fruitful examples. It was so inspiring for me to see what's possible already. And I hope that the audience also enjoyed the presentations. And I wish you all a wonderful continuation of this evening. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for our panelists who joined us virtually, and thank you so much, Mr. Matthew. Please, if you kindly remain on stage. So we would like to present you with the token of our appreciation presented by Dr. محمد المحاديف. تفضل دكتور محمد، عميد كلية العلوم الصحية. Thank you so much. Now we are pleased to present our last session for today, presented by Mr. Andres Schleicher, who is joining us virtually, and titled are discussing the topic of e-learning transforming lives and societies for a better future. Thank you so much.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to GTAL 2023. Your agenda is so important, particularly at the times in which we live. The pandemic has created much hardship in education, but it also prepared the space for unprecedented both social and technological innovation. And it is badly needed. The e-learning is not about, adding technology to education, conserving existing practice. It's truly about transforming it. And that is badly needed. In our assessment of social and emotional skills, we found that 15-year-olds in every country, every city, reported lower levels of creativity than 10-year-olds. Children are all born with an abundance of creative skills. If you have a 3-year-old son or daughter, they're going to question everything they're going to tell them. They're going to, experiment with anything that gets into their way. They're always willing to learn, always willing to unlearn, and always willing to relearn. And then we put them into schools, try to make them compatible with established ways of thinking rather than questioning our ways of thinking. And then they lose step by step some of that, important, incredibly important resource in the 21st century. Some people call all of this a race between technology and education. Before the first industrial revolution, neither technology nor education mattered much for the vast majority of people. But then the industrial revolution suddenly pushed technology ahead of the skills of people and created a huge amount of social pain. People were just not ready for that. But then, we built our schools, we made people compatible with the norms of the industrial age and actually created generations of prosperity. But now we have the digital revolution doing exactly the same thing, pushing technology once again ahead of the capabilities of people today. And we see that same social pain. Young people leaving university, having difficulties finding a great job, and at the same time employers saying they cannot find the people with the skills they need. We need to turn that around, moving people ahead of the technologies of our times. And that's really what this agenda is all about. And we're doing it at the right time. Schools are just waking up to the digital world that is so fundamentally transforming learning, teaching, education. There's so much promise. The greatest promise is probably in the greater personalization that, you know, technology provides. While you study mathematics on a computer, the computer can now figure out how you study and then make your learning so much more adaptive, so much more granular, so much more interactive. And to do that throughout people's lives, this is not about learning just in childhood and for young people. We can now make lifelong learning a reality for all with digital technologies. Learning also is becoming fun. You know, game-based learning introduces so much more interesting learning opportunities. Virtual reality embeds learners 3D, immersive in learning settings. Why would you listen to a teacher explaining you the result of an experiment when you can do that experiment in a virtual laboratory? I think about vocational education and training. Now, augmented reality can bring, you know, the knowledge of the world right into what you're doing at this point. The most controversial part of this agenda is, you know, to what extent should robots enter classrooms? And yeah, you know, one should be skeptical about all of this. But there are also immense opportunities. You know, the only way you do not learn a foreign language is by having a teacher in front of you talking about grammar and vocabulary. Learning languages is about interaction, it's about practice. And that's where robot tutors are actually really, really good. They can, you know, create that one-on-one experience. And we have seen very, very good results from those kinds of experiences. Data from Japan also show that, you know, sometimes you learn best by explaining things to other people rather than have other people talking to you and explaining things to you. Now, again, once again, that's very hard to do in a traditional classroom setting. But with using robots as peer learners, there's some really, really interesting results. So yeah, you know, a fair degree of skepticism, but still, we should look at the future of this now. And then, you know, there are big leaps in assessment and exams. Probably one of the greatest mistakes that we made in the history of education is to divorce learning from assessment and exam. We ask people, you know, to pile up lots and lots of, you know, knowledge over many years, and then one day we call them back and say, you know, tell me everything you know in a very contrived, constrained, artificial setting. And of course, that doesn't work very well. And that also has stifled teaching and the learning processes. And everything gets geared towards these artificial gateways. Well, with technology, we can now reunite learning and assessment. Now, once again, while you study, you get that, you know, interactive, immediate feedback to help, you know, students learn better, teachers teach better, schools to become more effective. Learning analytics have become incredibly powerful tools to help teachers understand how different students learn differently and to engage with that diversity in more productive kind of ways and settings. Well, you know, that's the promise. We still need to realize that, you know, sometimes reality is quite far away from this. In fact, when you look at some of the PISA data, unfortunately, often, you know, technology intensity relates negatively to the quality of learning outcomes. That doesn't speak against the use of technology in education. It is often our capacity to deploy it effectively. Too often we use technology for the same kind of learning experience that we would teach in traditional ways, not to leverage those new kinds of promises that I just outlined. So there's a lot of work to do to integrate technology and to design, you know, technology around new pedagogies. We also know from data that, you know, where teachers are not at the heart of the design of those new innovative technologies, they hardly are effective helping with implementation. You cannot just drop technology into classrooms. You need to build that ecosystem so that teachers are really an integral part of those designs. Now, smart education is not about technology. It is really about a radical reimagination of what teaching and learning can be when powered by new technologies. We need to advance from learning technology to fostering learning activity. And the activity needs to be at the heart. The technology is the surrounding, the enabler. Devices need to be more present, but less visible. E-learning is not about, you know, just typing on a smart phone or tablet. It is about technology being all around you, having sensors that, you know, give you that feedback and appraisal of what you're doing now. Making devices present everywhere, but not distracting from learning activity now. Using artificial intelligence to empower teaching and learning, not disempower it now. If you don't understand an algorithm, you're going to be soon the slave of that algorithm now. That's the reality as well. We need to sort of get people ready for that digital revolution now. Technology can give teachers tools to understand how different students learn differently, but it can also make learning more scripted, more passive, more receptive now. We need to walk that fine balance now. And that means also creating a more innovation-friendly ecosystem around technology. At the moment, the market is often dominated by a very kind of monopolistic environment. It's very hard for schools to make, intelligent purchasing decisions. Often we don't lack the kind of interoperability that you need, the kind of platforms that allow, coherent and compatible experiences now. So setting good standards, creating a level playing field for technology is incredibly important, and that needs to be governed by ethics, by transparency, and also, ensure that we reconcile, the free flow of information that is so crucial for EdTech with, reconcile it with data protection. Ensuring that, funding decisions are strategic and that procurement is, open and encourages actually also entrepreneurship and innovation in the system. And then last but not least, investing truly in capacity at the level of learners, at the level of teachers, school administrations. And you need to build that entire ecosystem. That makes, countries like Korea or Singapore, China or Estonia so effective in this now. So that's the agenda. And also always keep in mind that learning is not a transactional business. It's always a social, relational experience. Those relationships really, really count, and technology should enhance, scale them, not replace them. And that brings me to a very last point, and that's about digital citizenship. Now, on the one hand, technology is a great enabler for how we learn. But we also need to get young people ready for the digital world. In our last PISA assessment, we looked at digital navigation skills of young people. Can you distinguish fact from opinion? Can you manage complexity? Can you integrate different kind of viewpoints, data sources? The tasks that we gave students were not rocket science. They were actually the kind of tasks they would encounter every day when they navigate Facebook and the web. But here you see the results. You have a few countries on the left side, Singapore, Korea, parts of China, and so on, where you can say, a good majority, maybe 2/3 of young people have those navigation skills you need today. And this is not about the world of tomorrow. This is about our world today. There's still a large minority, and in many countries it's actually the majority of students who do not have those navigation skills, who are not ready for the digital world. Being born into the digital world doesn't mean that you are a digital native. And closing that second digital divide is not so much about social background, it's not about, access to technology. It's much more about the online activity that young people are engaged now. It's so important to provide competent and positive engagement with technology, opportunities where young people can become content creators, not just passive consumers of prefabricated content, where they can use technology to socialize, to learn, to share, to be active engagers now. That is so critically important in this digital world. Giving young people a voice in the design of new technologies. They are the experts. Sometimes they are ahead of their teachers. We need to recognize it, appreciate it, get more into the co-creation of learning environments rather than the passive, consumption of existing one. Of course, supporting teachers, educators. Ensure that they have positive experience as well, and that again comes to questions around interoperability, about intuitive kind of technologies that are compatible across the experiences. Now, often it's a very frustrating experience for teachers to work with technology. And then, building partnership. We need to move away from this culture of public versus private in education to move towards a culture of public with private, in service of the public good. That's what the future is really, really about now. We are ready for this. The technology is there. Schools are seeing this. We have seen during the pandemic much greater social acceptance for technology as well. But making it a reality is still a long way from us. And to achieve that, we need to transform work organization. In the past, it was enough to teach students something. We focused on routine cognitive skills, things that are easy to teach, easy to test. But the kind of things that are easy to teach and easy to test are now easy to digitize, to automate. We need to put much greater focus on complex ways of thinking, on complex ways of working, on the use, effective use of digital technology. In the past, it was enough for education to just sort people. Now, we only needed in our economies a few well-educated workers. Today, we need everyone. And it's not just about participation in economic life. It's also participation in social life. People need to get ready to this. And of course, that requires a very different education system, a very different caliber of teachers. In the past, education was about, standardization and compliance, educating students in batches, learning all at the same time, learning all the same curriculum content. In the future, learning needs to adapt much more flexible to the learning needs of individual students and rely on a high level of professional knowledge workers now. And of course, those kind of people don't like to work in the Tayloristic kind of work environments that our schools often provide. They like to work in flat, collegial, entrepreneurial environments now. And that's precisely what technology can enable us to achieve. Technology can make, high quality learning accessible to all. It can make learning experience relevant to the real world, relevant to their future, and ultimately, get ourselves ready, get our children ready for their future rather than just our past. Thank you very much, and I hope, the remainder of the digital conference will, find some practical ways of how to make this happen. Thank you again.
الحضور الكريم، مساء الخير من جديد. يسعد ملتقى التوجهات العالمية في التعليم الإلكتروني في عامه الثاني برعاية توقيع اتفاقية شراكة بين شركة تطوير لتقنية التعليم يمثلها الأستاذ عبد العزيز الصعيري مدير إدارة المنتجات، تفضل. وكذلك شركة عطاء التعليمية يمثلها الأستاذ فهد آل نافع مدير عام رأس المال البشري، تفضل. تهدف هذه الاتفاقية لتوفير العديد من الشهادات الاحترافية بين الجهتين. شباب شكرا لكم. شكرا لكم جميعا. شكرا لكم جميعا. نتوقف الآن لأخذ استراحة بسيطة وأداء صلاة العشاء إن شاء الله تعالى، ثم نعود من جديد للحفل الختامي. هذا الملتقى. وصلنا للمرحلة الأخيرة وللوقت النهائي. وصلنا نقول لكل شخص قدم جهد، قدم عمل، قدم رؤية، قال كلمة، حضر، شكرا. شكرا لوجودكم، شكرا لعطائكم، شكرا لأنكم أنجحتوا هذا الحفل وهذا الملتقى. المشاعر جياشة كونه جزء من فريق العمل اللي احنا اليوم من غير شر لا علينا ولا عليكم نودع ختام هذا الملتقى ونبدأ في التخطيط للعام القادم إن شاء الله، ونشوفكم بإذن الله السنة الجاية. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. سعادة رئيسة الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية الأستاذة الدكتورة ليلك بنت أحمد الصفدي، أصحاب السعادة الحضور الكريم، أهلا ومرحبا بكم في اليوم الأخير والختامي لملتقى التوجهات العالمية في التعليم الإلكتروني في عامه الثاني. اليوم يوم مهم حاسم، فيه إعلان لأسماء الفائزين في واحة الابتكارات في التعليم، في شكر للحاضرين والمتطوعين اللجان العاملة كذلك. طيب، ما هي واحة الابتكارات في التعليم؟ نعطيكم نبذة بسيطة قبل البدء في التكريم. يعتبر هذا البرنامج النوعي والفريد هو أحد البرامج المصاحبة لملتقى التوجهات العالمية في التعليم الإلكتروني. استهدف هذا البرنامج طلبة الجامعات، أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية من جميع الجامعات السعودية، كما هي الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية جامعة وطن. استهدف هالبرنامج أو قدم هالبرنامج ابتكارات فريدة تستخدم التقنيات الناشئة لخدمة قطاع التعليم، كذلك عرضها ضمن جناح خاص مصاحب أكيد أنكم شفتوه وطلعتوا عليه، شفتوا شبابنا وشاباتنا وأساتذتنا كذلك المبدعين واللي ابتكروا لنا مشاريع جديدة. اليوم الآن المرحلة هذه يتنافس 16 مشروع ضمن مشاريع كثيرة جدا، لكن وصل إلى المرحلة النهائية اليوم 16 مشروع وطني سعودي يقدم خدمة جليلة للوطن ولأبناء الوطن. الحفل الكريم قبل الفيديو 50,000 ريال الجائزة ل6 فرق فائزة اليوم. خلونا نشوف معاكم عرضا مرئيا عن واحة الابتكارات في التعليم. جهد مضني، لجان تحكيم، عقول مبتكرة، شباب فذ، هذا هو السعودي. الحضور الكريم أرحب وإياكم بسعادة وكيل الجامعة لشؤون الفروع الدكتور حمد بالحارث لإلقاء كلمته. تفضل دكتور.
مساء الخير على الجميع. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. سعادة رئيسة الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية، أصحاب السعادة، الحضور الكريم، يطيب لي باسمي وباسم منسوبي الجامعة أن نرحب بكم في حفل توزيع جوائز واحة الابتكار في التعليم، والذي تقيمه الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية ضمن النسخة الثانية لملتقى التوجهات العالمية في التعليم الإلكتروني برعاية معالي وزير التعليم الأستاذ يوسف البنيان، وتهدف الواحة لتحفيز الابتكار وريادة الأعمال لاستخدام التقنيات الحديثة في مجال التعليم وتحويلها إلى منشآت رقمية ناشئة لخلق فرص عمل جديدة ومنتجات وخدمات ابتكارية في التعليم تدعم اقتصاد المملكة المعتمد على المعرفة والابتكار. أصحاب السعادة، الحضور الكريم، حرصت الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية كصرح تعليمي حاضن لرواد ورائدات الأعمال الناشئين على إنشاء بيئة تعليمية خصبة لتحفيز الفكر الريادي وتشجيع الطلبة وأعضاء الهيئات التعليمية على ابتكار الفكرة وإنتاج المشاريع الفريدة، وذلك تحقيقاً لأهداف الجامعة الاستراتيجية ومستهدفات برامج تنمية القدرات البشرية ورؤية المملكة 2030، وتفعيلاً للدور المجتمعي للجامعات في المجتمع وإنفاذاً لتوجيهات القيادة الرشيدة أعزها الله. نشكر جميع المشاركين والمنظمين ورعاة البرنامج وشركاء النجاح الذين لم يدخروا جهداً في سبيل إنجاح هذا المشروع، والشكر والتقدير موصول لمقدمي المحتوى والخبراء ولجنة التحكيم، ونبارك مقدماً للفائزين اليوم بجوائز واحة الابتكار. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام. تفضل هنا دكتور حمد. دكتور حمد بعد إذنك تفضل هنا. شكرا لك. 16 فريق من كل أنحاء المملكة، أكيد حضورهم اليوم مو بهين، والمشاريع اللي قدموها ليست سهلة أو بسيطة، فتقديرا لذلك رأت الجامعة تكريمهم كلهم، بعدين نشوف من اللي فاز بالفلوس. طيب، رحبوا معي أيضا بالأستاذ محمد بدني، الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة كلاسيرا، لمشاركة التكريم مع الدكتور حمد. بنستعرض الآن معكم البرامج أو عفوا المشاريع المشاركة، 16 مشروع. نبدأها بتطبيق ابتكارات أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية بالجامعات السعودية، تطبيق ومنصة توسم. شوفها يا شباب. عاد سامحنا دكتور حمد بنطول عليك شوي في الوقفة. طيب تفضلوا يا شباب، فريق تطبيق ومنصة توسم، وينكم؟ تعالوا ناخذ تكريمكم. طبعا هالتطبيق مقدم من طلبة جامعة عفوا أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية بالجامعات السعودية، جامعة الملك سعود بن عبد العزيز للعلوم الصحية. هالمنصة تفيد المحتوى المرئي في المجال الطبي، تعتمد على تقنيات الواقع المعزز والذكاء الاصطناعي للتعرف على الصور الطبية وعرض محتوى تعليمي وتدريبي تفاعلي. الفريق هو عمر صالح العبود وعماد فهد البلوي وبدر بن علي العمري. تستاهلون هذا التكريم. طيب، شكرا لكم يا شباب. الثاني هو بحث تطبيقي القارئ الذكي لضعاف البصر من جامعة الأمير سلطان، قدمه كل من الفريق المطور الأستاذ الدكتور أحمد عزار والأستاذ الدكتور محمد التونسي والدكتور جي جوتي والدكتورة نشوى أحمد. هذا البحث هو نموذج تم استخدام الذكاء الاصطناعي المبني على التعلم العميق للأشخاص الذين يعانون من إعاقة بصرية لتقديم نموذج قائم على الصوت يمثل ويوضح الصور المضمنة في النصوص المطبوعة، وقد تم التوصل إلى نسبة دقة تصل 83% في نتائج القراءة، وجاري العمل على تطويرها. تكريم يا شباب، ما لهم درع؟ حاولوا تستعجلون في الدروع لا تتأخروا. شكرا لكم. المشروع الثالث أداة اقتباس، وهي أداة تساعد الباحثين الأكاديميين وطلاب الدراسات العليا في كتابة أبحاثهم العلمية من خلال تقييد الاقتباسات والتوثيقات من الكتب والأبحاث التي يقرؤونها، مقدم من الفريق المطور الدكتور خليوي العياضي والدكتور أحمد السحيمي من الجامعة الإسلامية بالمدينة المنورة. تفضلوا. المشروع الرابع هو لعبة إلكترونية، لعبة الواقع الافتراضي لدعم التعليم أو التعلم التجريبي، مقدم من الأستاذة إيناس الرحيلي من الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية. عاد هذه لازم تصفيق زيادة، جامعتنا صراحة. لعبة تعليمية تستخدم تقنية الواقع الافتراضي، تمكن الطلاب من تعلم سلوك الكائنات الحية بالتجربة. شكرا لك أستاذة إيناس. المشروع الخامس أداة تقنية التصوير التجسيمي الهولوجرام في المجال التعليمي، قدمه الفريق المطور الأستاذ الدكتور فواز الصاعدي والدكتور علي الزهراني، الدكتور مصلح العضايلة والأستاذ فواز المحمدي من جامعة الملك فيصل. تفضلوا. تستخدم هذه التقنية تقنية التصوير التجسيمي الهولوجرام كتقنية جديدة لعرض المحتوى التعليمي التفاعلي وعناصر العملية التعليمية بأسلوب يحاكي الواقع من خلال استديوهات بث متطورة وقاعات مجهزة لاستقبال التصوير التجسيمي. المشروع السابع ولا السادس؟ لازم تعدون معي، لازم تركزون، هذا اختبار. طيب، المشروع هو نظام أستاذي، نظام متكامل عبارة عن جهاز روحي خاص بشاشتين وقلم، يحتوي على برامج تعليمية خاصة لتطوير المتعلمين واكتشاف وتنمية مهارات الموهوبين منهم. مقدم من فريق التطوير ما شاء الله تبارك الله الدكتورة عواطف بالعبيد، الدكتورة تسنيم الأحمري، الأستاذة مرام الرشيدي، الأستاذة حورية الشيخ، الأستاذة سمية الشيخ، الأستاذ عبد المعين الشيخ، الأستاذة عبير الألمعي من جامعة الملك سعود وجامعة حال وجامعة أم القرى وجامعة جازان. ما شاء الله تبارك الله. شكرا لكم. مشروع السابع روبوت وتطبيق رفيقي، نظام لمساعدة الصم العرب، قدمه الفريق المطور الأستاذ الدكتور منصور سليمان والأستاذ محمد مختشي والأستاذ محمد الجبري والأستاذ محمد الأستاذ محمد بن شريف والأستاذ وليد البقمي والأستاذ ناصر زامل والأستاذ أسامة القحطاني من جامعة الملك سعود وجامعة المعرفة. تفضلوا. هو نظام ترجمة متكامل بين الشخص الأصم وغير الأصم عبر تطبيق وروبوت يستخدم أحدث تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي من الشبكات العصبية والتعلم العميق. يعطيكم العافية. شكرا لكم. المشروع الثامن والأخير لابتكارات أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية بالجامعات السعودية، أداة قياس مخرجات التعلم، قدمها المطور الدكتور تامر سباعي من جامعة الأمير سلطان، وهو أداة تم تطويرها بالتكامل مع برنامج مايكروسوفت إكسل لقياس مخرجات التعلم على مستويات مختلفة، بداية من الطالب إلى الفصل إلى البرنامج إلى الكلية والجامعة. شكرا لك. الآن ابتكارات طلبة الجامعات السعودية. التطبيق الأول منقذ، وهو التطبيق الإسعافي الأول الذي صمم ليكون مدرباً لعمليات الإسعافات الأولية. طوره الفريق رند فهد العامر، جود سلطان درويش، نورة أحمد السلامة، ورهف نايف السهلي، وبسمة أحمد الحمراني من جامعة الملك سعود. شكرا لكم، فالكم التوفيق. الابتكار الثاني هو من طلبة الجامعات تطبيق سبار، أي منصة تهدف لتحسين عملية التقييم، ممثلة بالمنحنى التقييمي للاختبارات وتوزيع الأهداف باستخدام التقنية الإقناعية والتحليل العكسي. طور الفريق المطور هو ناصر بن أحمد الحربي ومعاذ بن غازي بوشال من جامعة الملك سعود بن عبد العزيز للعلوم الصحية. شكرا لكم يا شباب وفالكم التوفيق. الابتكار الثالث لعبة إلكترونية، لعبة تعليم كتابة الكلمات العربية باستخدام الواقع المعزز. الفريق المطور هو وعد بنت عواض الصحيمي، وبدور عبد الله السهلي، وآسيا محمد العلواني، والأستاذة إيناس الرحيلي من الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية. عاد لا تلقائيا لا شعوريا أبتسم في ذكر اسم جامعتي. طيب تفضلوا. التطبيق يعتمد أسلوب التلعيب في التعليم. تم استخدام تقنية الواقع المعزز لتقديم تجربة تفاعلية تمكن الطالب كتابة الكلمات العربية بشكل صحيح وتعلم كلمات جديدة من خلال الدمج بين العالم الحقيقي والافتراضي. باقي أحد من الفريق؟ طيب يلا معوضة خير أستاذة إيناس. طيب المشروع الثالث الرابع تطبيق المستورق، تطبيق يتيح بيع الكتب المستعملة والمستلزمات الدراسية والأجهزة الإلكترونية بالإضافة لمسار خاص لدور النشر للكتب الجديدة. طورته المزون الحردان من جامعة الإمام محمد بن سعود الإسلامية. المشروع الخامس لابتكارات طلبة الجامعات السعودية، منصة الدورات المفتوحة التعليمية. هي منصة توفر دورات تعليمية في مواضيع مختلفة عبر مسار التعلم الذاتي. ما شاء الله تبارك الله. الفريق المطور إبراهيم خرفان، فؤاد مجد، حارث الرشودي، مهند رزق، سريع سباعي من جامعة الأمير سلطان. دكتورة تعطيني موية؟ شكرا لك دكتورة. تسمحوني لازم أشرب موية، تعبت. شكرا لكم يا شباب، يعطيكم العافية. المشروع السادس من ابتكارات طلبة الجامعات السعودية، منصة المنبر الرقمي. طورتها منى الرشيدي من الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية. طيب تفيد هذه المنصة وتقدم لصناع المحتوى الرقمي والتدريب والخدمات الرقمية فرصة عرضها للمستفيدين للحصول على منتجات رقمية لتطوير مهارات في مواضع مختلفة. طيب المشروع السابع تطبيق واضح. طوره الفريق رند الشنيفي وفاطمة العيسى من جامعة شقرة. هو وتطبيق يعتمد على تقنية الواقع المعزز في تدريب الطلبة على التجارب المختلفة. يساهم التطبيق في توفير تكاليف المعامل والأدوات التقليدية المطلوبة لتنفيذ التجربة. فلكم التوفيق. شكرا لكم. المشروع الثامن والأخير من ابتكارات طلبة الجامعات السعودية تطبيق هريرة. طوره الفريق المطور له هو أحمد الغامدي وفيصل حداد من جامعة شقرة. منصة تعليمية تهدف لتطوير تجربة التعلم باستخدام تقنيات التعليم بالتلعيب، وتوفر المنصة للمعلمين تمكن بناء التجربة التعليمية بالأدوات المناسبة، وتطبيق للطلاب يمكنهم بالانضمام للرحلات التعليمية وإكمالها بطريقة مفيدة وممتعة. تعبناكم معنا. شكرا دكتور حمد، شكرا أستاذ محمد. تقدرون تتفضلون، عاد يستاهلون تحية على الوقفة هذه. أعلن الفائزين الآن ولا شوي؟ شوي. طيب نستعرض وياكم. لا ما شاء الله علي. فاجأتوني. شكرا. كنت أتوقع الدراهم، كنت أتوقع الجوائز. طيب تتنافس المشاريع اليوم للفوز بجوائز التحدي مجموعها 50,000 ريال. الجوائز كما يلي: جوائز المشاريع الفائزة عبر مسار أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية. المركز الأول يحصل على 15,000 ريال، والمركز الثاني على 10,000 ريال، المركز الثالث على 7,000 ريال. أما بالنسبة لجوائز المشاريع الفائزة عبر مسار طلبة الجامعات، المركز الأول يحصل على 10,000 ريال والمركز الثاني على 7,000 ريال، المركز الثالث على 3,000 ريال. طبعا يأتي هذا البرنامج برنامج واحة الابتكارات برعاية من شركة كلاراس قلتوها ومجموعة من شركاء النجاح. نستعرضهم الآن. هذا لهم، يعطيهم العافية ما قصروا. تحية لهم ولجامعتنا معهم، يستاهلون. طيب هذه مهمة جدا لكم، المشاريع اللي حاضرة اليوم. الإعلان عن باقة يسعدنا اليوم، أو يسعدني أنا صراحة، أنا سعيد بهذا الأمر. الإعلان عن باقة من البرامج المقدمة لجميع المشاركين بواحة الابتكارات عبر شركاء النجاح، وهي كما يلي: مسرعة سنايبر بيقدموا لكم إن شاء الله دورات لمشاركين بالواحة في تطوير الأعمال ودعم لتسريع المشاريع. يستاهلون تحية. يلا. منصة المنتور التعليمية بتقدم لكم إن شاء الله برامج تدريبية في مواضيع منوعة في ريادة الأعمال على منصة المنتور. شكرا لكم. مركز دلني لريادة الأعمال التابع لبنك التنمية الاجتماعية بيقدمون لكم إن شاء الله استشارات لتطوير الأعمال وبرنامج احتضان للشركات الناشئة، وإن شاء الله تصيرون من المشاريع الضخمة وناخذ منكم والجهات تاخذ منكم إن شاء الله. مجموعة هامبرو بريكس بتقدم لكم إن شاء الله ورش عمل لنقل الأفكار إلى السوق لريادي الأعمال بإذن الله تعالى. طيب هالمرحلة الضخمة جدا اللي احنا نشوفها في 10 دقائق مرت بمراحل ضخمة، بأوقات صعبة، بأفكار كثيرة، وأيضا مرت بنوعية معينة لاختيار هالمشاريع. شكرا للفرق المشاركة. أيضا أنا أوجه شكر وتقدير ويستاهلون تحية لجان التحكيم اللي كانت معهم من بداية المرحلة حتى وصلنا اليوم. تم تقييم المشاريع عبر عدة جولات تحكيم، كان آخرها يوم أمس بمشاركة نخبة من الخبراء في مجالات التقنية والتعليم وريادة الأعمال. وصلنا للمرحلة الحاسمة، إعلان الفائزين. دكتور عبد الرحمن، دكتور، طيب مرحب معي بسعادة الدكتور عبد الرحمن العطوي رئيس المعرض الدولي وبرنامج واحة الابتكارات المصاحبة لملتقى التوجهات العالمية في التعليم الإلكتروني. وأنا هذا هو جاي من هناك، أعطونا بالله خلوا الكاميرا عليه شباب. الدكتور عبد الرحمن جاي بالنتائج في يده الآن. لحظات صعبة، الكل وده يلقط هالورقتين منك يا دكتور. شكرا دكتور عبد الرحمن. ورقتين فيها 50,000 ريال يا شباب. بعيداً عن 50,000 ريال، فخر واعتزاز من الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية أنها تقدم هذه المشاريع للوطن. أن تحتضن الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية هذه المشاريع، هذه العقول الرائدة، هذه الابتكارات المتنوعة، وتقدمها للوطن ليخدم الوطن. يعلن ولا شوي؟ أنا المفروض أني أستدعي سعادة الرئيس الآن عشان التكريم، بس لا، خليك شوي دكتورة، خلينا نشوقهم شوي. طيب، أعضاء الهيئات الفائزة، احنا شفنا 16 مشروع، كرمت الجامعة 16 مشروع على مشاركتهم وتواجدهم على مشاريعهم الابتكارية والرائدة والمتنوعة. لكن اللي بيفوز 3 في أعضاء هيئة التدريس و3 في طلبة الجامعات. من اللي بيفوز؟ المركز الأول والثاني والثالث. أكثر يا دكتورة ولا خلاص؟ خلاص؟ طيب، في أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية الحاصل على المركز الثالث، عشان السنابة ما تروح، الحاصل على المركز الثالث من أعضاء الهيئات التعليمية روبوت وتطبيق رفيقي. يستاهلون. تفضلي سعادة رئيسة الجامعة الأستاذة الدكتورة بتسليم الفائزين الشيك. أعطونا الشيك يا شباب. 5,000 ريال للمركز الثالث. تفضلي هنا سعادة الرئيسة. لا، بيجون الحين. يلا يا شباب، مبروكين إن شاء الله. طيب سعادة الرئيس، ما بطول عليك انت عشان ما تكوني واقفة، فأعلن بسرعة صح؟ تسمي. طيب، الحاصل على المركز الثاني بجائزة قدرها 10,000 ريال من المشاريع المشاركة لأعضاء الهيئات التعليمية لعبة الواقع الافتراضي لدعم التعلم التجريبي. تستاهلون. أستاذة إيناس. المركز الأول 15,000. تعلنها سعادة الرئيسة. طيب لا لا تفضلي سعادة الرئيسة. الرئيس الآن بتعلن المركز الأول الحاصل على 15,000 ريال. أعطونا المايك يا شباب.
والفائز بالمركز الأول تطبيق ومنصة توسم.
تفضل هنا. مبروك يا شباب. أعتقد الرئيسة حمستكم أكثر مني. تستاهلون ألف ألف مبروك. طيب، طلبة الجامعات السعودية، شباب سعودي مبدع، مفكر، مطور، مبتكر. نعلن؟ طيب، الحاصل على المركز الثالث بجائزة قدرها 3000 ريال، تطبيق منقذ. تستاهلون، ألف مبروك، شكرا لكم. دكتور إذا تسمحي لي بس، كل المشاريع ال16 اللي وصلت اليوم هي مشاريع ناجحة متميزة، لكن هذه سياسة المسابقات، وبإذن الله تعالى شوفكم كلكم وكل المشاريع مشاريع عملاقة وضخمة تستفيد منها المنشآت والجامعات والوطن. الحاصل على المركز الثاني بجائزة قدرها 7000 ريال، تطبيق هريرة. مبروك يا شباب، يعطيكم العافية، ألف مبروك، شكرا لكم. 10,000 ريال الجائزة الأولى والمركز الأول لطلبة الجامعات السعودية. والله حلوة الموسيقى هذه، حماسية. طيب، الحاصل على المركز الأول في مشاريع طلبة الجامعات السعودية بجائزة قدرها 10,000 ريال، تطبيق واضح. تستاهلون، ألف مبروك. شكرا لك سعادة الرئيسة. بما أنك عندنا الآن، ولا استريحي، تفضل استريحي مرتين. تفضل سعادة الرئيسة، شكرا لك. أعطوني قائمة الأسماء. تسمحوا لي أرتاح بس نصف دقيقة؟ شكرا، ما سمعتكم بس شكرا. تمام كذا؟ شكرا لكم. طيب، سعادة الرئيسة، الحضور الكريم، ورحب وإياكم الآن بسعادة الرئيس التنفيذي، بسعادة رئيس اللجنة التنفيذية لملتقى التوجهات العالمية الدكتور عبد العزيز بن دخيل حمادي لإلقاء كلمة الختام للملتقى. تفضل دكتور عبد العزيز.
السلام عليكم. مساء الخير على الجميع. طبعا قبل الكلمة الختامية، أنا بالحقيقة طبعا هذا نهاية اليوم الثالث، ودنا نمدها لأكثر من 3 أيام، ولكن دعونا نختم هذه الكلمة. فحياكم الله جميعا. مع انتهاء جلسات طبعا اليوم نصل إلى نهاية ملتقانا لهذا العام. يطيب لي أن أتقدم بالشكر الجميع على انضمامهم إلينا في ملتقى التوجهات العالمية في التعليم الإلكتروني في نسخته الثانية على مدى 3 أيام لتعزيز تبادل المعرفة واستكشاف التطورات المستقبلية المتعلقة بالتعليم الإلكتروني. استمتعنا خلال 3 أيام ولله الحمد ب7 جلسات حوارية رائعة و8 محاضرات ملهمة و6 ورش عمل تفاعلية، واستعرضنا أحدث منتجات وتقنيات التعلم الإلكتروني والمشاريع طبعا المحلية والمبتكرة والأوراق العلمية في مجال التعليم الإلكتروني. واستمتعنا إلى أكثر من 45 خبير وأكاديمي بارز ومطورين تقنيين مساهمين في دعم وتنمية التعلم الإلكتروني وتوسيع آفاق مستخدمي ومطورين. طبعا حضر ملتقانا ولله الحمد أكثر من 10,000 مسجل ومشارك من أكثر من 70 دولة، وزار المعرض ما يقارب 6,000 من الباحثين ورواد الأعمال والمهتمين في مجال الأعمال والتعليم الإلكتروني والرقمي. كما أثرى نخبة الخبراء الجلسات بنقاشات تفاعلية مفصلة ودقيقة للغاية، وتقودها وجهات النظر المتنوعة والمثيرة. طبعا في الختام لا أريد الإطالة عليكم، أتقدم بخالص الشكر الجزير لمعالي وزير التعليم على رعايته الكريمة لهذه الملتقى وللدعم المتواصل من سعادة رئيسة الجامعة السعودية الإلكترونية الدكتورة ليلك بن أحمد الصيفدي وقيادات الجامعة دون استثناء، وعلى رأسهم اللجنة التنفيذية للملتقى التوجهات العالمية في نسخته الثانية، والذي لم يجدوا أو لم يقصروا في أي عمل في أي ساعة من خلال أعمال هذا الملتقى ولله الحمد. وفي الختام نشكر للجميع الحضور وشكرا لكم.
شكرا دكتور عبد العزيز. جهد 10 أشهر ينتهي اليوم بفضل الله سبحانه وتعالى بنجاح وبتميز وبإعطاء متقد وبمبادرات وأفكار جديدة وبأطروحات وتوصيات علمية إن شاء الله أنها ترى النور بإذن الله تعالى. شكرا لكم جميعا على حضوركم تواجدكم. تستطيعون الآن فتح الأبواب. الشباب المنظمين الله يعطيكم العافية. منسوبي الجامعة وطلبة الجامعة أتمنى منكم التكرم بالبقاء في القاعة. شكرا لكم جميعا وعلى دروب النجاح والتقدم والعطاء في الوطن العظيم. نلتقي دائما. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.